The gavel slammed like a gunshot. A single second of silence followed, then the courtroom erupted into chaos. Janelle Carter let out a strangled cry, her knees giving way as she collapsed to the floor. Her scream cut through the room, a raw and wordless sound that made even the bailiff freeze before rushing to restrain her. Her 17-year-old son, Michael Carter, stood pale and still at the defendant's table, wrists bound in cold steel. The judge barely looked up as he pronounced, "Life without parole." A reporter's camera flashed. That one photo, Janelle crumpled, Michael blank-faced, would make the morning papers. Michael turned to his mother, lips barely moving. This wasn't justice, this was revenge. The guards moved him swiftly, almost violently, toward the back door. Janelle fought to reach him, clawing against uniforms and authority. She didn't make it. The metal door slammed behind him. Silence fell again, not peace, but the sound of something sacred breaking. Before all this, Michael Carter was just a kid from the East District. Quiet. Smart. Tight. He was the type who got extra credit without being asked, who walked his mom to the bus stop when her legs gave out. Teachers loved him. His classmates trusted him. He was never late, never loud, never looking for trouble. And Janelle? She worked nights at the hospital and came home to pack his lunch. Their tiny apartment smelled of antiseptic and burnt toast, and the calendar on the fridge had every exam, every shift, every bill, all color-coded. He didn't hang out late, didn't drink, didn't fight. On weekends, he mowed lawns to buy Janelle's meds. He wanted to be a surgeon. Said he liked fixing things. He had this small smile when he said it, like the world didn't scare him. But the world doesn't care how good you are. The world cares who's standing nearby when something goes wrong. And when that night came, Michael was in the wrong place, surrounded by the wrong kind of silence. There had been a party. A house too big for the kids inside it. Music thumping, red cups, bad decisions. Michael didn't even want to go, but his friend James had asked. And loyalty was something he never took lightly. So he went. And when the shouting started, he was in the kitchen. By the time the screaming started, he was already moving toward the front door. Then came the body, James, falling, bleeding. The police came fast enough to catch panic but too slow to see what really happened. Michael froze. And in that stillness someone pointed. Just one person. That's all it took. It was him. And everything changed. No blood on his hands, no weapon on his body. But the pointing finger was louder than facts. Michael was cuffed before the paramedics even touched James. That was the beginning. The truth was buried under the noise. The trial didn't take long. Barely 3 months. The public defender, exhausted and overworked, barely met Michael's eyes. The DA smiled for the cameras, selling justice like a product. No DNA. No fingerprints. Just a party, a death, and a scared teenager too quiet to defend himself. Witnesses were inconsistent. Timelines didn't match. But it didn't matter. The story was cleaner this way. The press wanted a headline. The DA wanted re-election. Michael's silence did the rest. And Janelle, she sat through it all. Every day. Suit ironed. Eyes opened. Hands clenched so tight, they bruised. She wanted to scream, but her son was watching. So, she stayed quiet. The verdict came fast. Life. No parole. A teenager filed away like paperwork, and the room applauded. Not loud, but enough to hear. The city forgot fast. One more name. One more number. But Janelle didn't. She kept every document, every article, every blurry photo. She memorized the transcripts. She relived that day, the moment Michael looked back at her, not angry, not scared, just gone. She knew her son. Knew what it meant when his shoulders fell like that. So she started asking questions. Quietly at first. Letters. Voicemails. Meetings that didn't happen. No. Everyone said the same thing. Let it go. Move on. Move on. But Janelle didn't move. She rooted herself in the truth, in the place where a mother's rage burns slow and steady. The fight hadn't started yet. But it would. And when it did, it would shake the very ground that tried to bury her son alive. Janelle didn't sleep much anymore. Her nights were a patchwork of memories and noise. The echo of the gavel, the sound of Michael's voice in that courtroom. She went back to work, robotic and hollow, her movements precise but soulless. The hospital lights were too bright, the shifts too long. Her co-workers avoided her eyes. At home, she sat for hours rereading the transcript, lips moving silently, tracing lines that never made sense. One morning, as the sun bled through the blinds, she whispered to herself, "They didn't even try to see him." That day, she skipped work. She walked to the site of the party, the house where it all happened. Grass overgrown. Porch paint peeled. But it was still there. She stood on the sidewalk like a ghost visiting the living. "Somebody saw," she said under her breath. "Somebody knows." And that was the moment it changed. Not the system, not the story, but Janelle. She became someone else. Someone dangerous. She started asking questions, knocking on doors. Most slammed shut. A few cracked open, just long enough to say, "I don't remember," or "Let it go, Ms. Carter." But Janelle didn't scare easy. She found names in the case file, students from that night. Some were in college now, others vanished from social media. But one, Elena Ramos, still lived nearby. Elena had been the last person to speak at the party. In the police file, she said she saw a shadow. That was all. Janelle found her outside a community clinic, sitting on the curb with her hoodie up, eyes darting. "I don't want trouble," Elena said before Janelle even introduced herself. But her hands were shaking. Janelle crouched next to her. "You saw something, didn't you?" Elena didn't answer. But her silence wasn't empty. It was the kind that holds weight. The kind that says, "Yes, but I'm terrified." And Janelle knew then, the truth wasn't buried. It was hiding. 2 days later, Elena was gone. Her apartment, empty. Her phone, disconnected. The clinic said she missed her appointment. Janelle stood outside the building, staring at the windows, heart pounding. It wasn't coincidence. It was warning. That night, Janelle sat on her bed, holding Michael's last letter. His words were shorter now. Tighter. "There are no clocks here, no light, just noise. And at the end, I think I'm disappearing." She pressed the paper to her chest and rocked slowly, silently. Then, without turning on a light, she went to the kitchen and pulled out a folder. She started writing names, dates, quotes. A case file of her own. She no longer trusted anyone else to do it. She'd make her own truth, page by page. Because if Elena was gone, that meant Janelle was close to something someone didn't want found. Janelle tried the press. Local stations. National blogs. She sent letters with evidence summaries, timelines, quotes from witnesses. She even emailed a podcast. No one replied. Or worse, they responded with sympathy, not interest. "It's a complicated case," one producer wrote. No clear villain, no angle. Janelle read it twice before deleting it. She was beginning to understand the story they wanted wasn't the story that happened. So she made noise in other ways. She stood outside the courthouse with a sign. She left flyers on cars. She printed photos of Michael's bruised wrists. People looked away. Or worse, they smiled politely and walked faster. But late one night, while taping a flyer to a streetlight, a voice behind her said, "You're wasting your time." She turned. A man in shadows. Hands in his pockets. "But you're right," he said. "The tape exists." Then he walked away. She didn't sleep that night. Her hands shook too much to rest. She pulled out the court documents again, retraced every footstep, every name, every omission. There, in one line buried in the case notes, A security camera across the street recorded the initial altercation. But there was no footage listed in evidence. Janelle circled the line in red, heart pounding. The camera. No, new, the one they never mentioned in court. The one no one reviewed. She grabbed her coat. Dawn hadn't broken yet, but she was already moving. She reached the building across from the party house, an old liquor store, now boarded up. Security camera still intact. She snapped photos of the angle. Then she found a name. The store owner. Gone now. But the building had a manager. She tracked the man down by noon. He remembered Michael. Remembered the tape. The cops took it, he said. Then said it was blank. But Janelle knew better. The truth wasn't missing. It had been erased. The manager gave her a name. Jordan Harris. 22. Used to hang out with Michael before the arrest. Worked part-time at the liquor store. Janelle tracked him down at a gas station on the south end of town. At first he tried to pretend he didn't know her. I'm not getting involved, he said, eyes darting around the parking lot. But Janelle didn't move. She stood in front of his car, arms crossed. You remember, Michael. You were there. You saw the footage. Jordan froze. The lie dropped from his face like glass shattering. He looked around again, then whispered, You really want to know? He told her the tape showed everything. The fight, the killer, the truth. It wasn't Michael. It was someone else. A white kid. The Diaz nephew. The cops took the tape, said it was irrelevant. Jordan never saw it again. Until now. Because he had a copy. Hidden, duh. You didn't get this from me, he said, handing over a USB stick. If they find out. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Janelle didn't go home. She drove to a public library across town, heart racing, eyes burning. Inside, under fluorescent lights and surrounded by silence, she plugged the USB into an old desktop. The file took seconds to open. Grainy footage. Night vision, black and white. The party across the street. A blur of figures. And then it happened. The fight, the push, the fall. James hit the ground. Michael stepped back. And another boy, taller, white, wearing a varsity jacket, ran. Janelle leaned in. Frame by frame, the truth unfolded. Michael didn't touch anyone. He just saw it. And now, he was paying for silence. She covered her mouth to keep from crying out. A man walked past behind her, and she shrank instinctively, shielding the screen. The file was time-stamped. Dated. Stored. Real. She saved it again. Twice. Then printed stills. Her hands trembled. She had it. Proof. But now came the harder part. Getting someone to believe it. She tried her lawyer first. The same one from the trial, tired, overworked, and out of answers. She showed him the footage. He blinked. Twice. Then sighed. This might be something, but don't get your hopes up. He warned her how hard it would be. How courts resist reopening closed cases. How politics protects itself. But she didn't care. This is my son's life, she said. He nodded slowly, already overwhelmed. Then he gave her a name, someone who might help. An independent journalist named Cara Mendez. Used to do crime reporting. She's tough, he said. Not afraid of the da. Janelle called her that night. Cara answered on the second ring. You have evidence? Cara asked, voice sharp. Then meet me. Midnight. Bring everything. Janelle didn't hesitate. She printed a fresh set of stills. Clutched the USB like it was gold. And for the first time since Michael was taken, she felt something new. Not fear. Not grief. Momentum. Cara Mendez was exactly what Janelle needed. Fast-talking, sharp-eyed, and unshakable. They met in a diner after midnight, chrome glinting under neon lights. Kara didn't smile. She opened the file, scanned the stills, then watched the footage on her laptop. 10 minutes in, she said, "This is real." 20 minutes later she asked, "Are you ready to go to war?" Janelle said nothing. She just nodded. Kara laid it out. They'd need copies in multiple places. Off-site backups. A press strategy. She warned Janelle, "Once this goes live, they'll come for you. The police, even the media. You'll be a target." Janelle's response was quiet. "They already took everything." Kara leaned back, assessing her. "All right," she said. "Then, let's make it loud." And just like that, the game changed. What had been grief became fire. What had been silence became strategy. Janelle wasn't just a mother anymore. She was a threat. The story went live 2 days later. Kara published it on her platform with stills, timestamps, background, and a title that hit like a drumbeat: "The Boy They Buried Alive." Within hours, it started spreading. Comments, shares, and retweets. Most people were stunned. Some were outraged. And then, silence. No official statement. No rebuttal. Janelle waited. Day 1. Day 2. Day 3. Then, quietly, anonymously, a package arrived at Kara's apartment. Inside, court transcripts, internal memos, missing evidence logs. Documents the defense had never seen. Kara called Janelle. "This is big. This is corruption." One page in particular showed an email from the DA's office, an order to suppress any non-essential surveillance. "They knew," Kara whispered. They all knew. Janelle didn't cry. She just stared at the page, her hand shaking slightly. The truth was no longer a theory. It was fact. The system hadn't failed. It had lied. Janelle returned to the courthouse, not to beg, but to confront. She walked through those tall glass doors with her head high and a folder under her arm. Security stopped her, asked why she was there. She didn't flinch. "To fix what you broke." She found her way to the judge's clerk and demanded a hearing. The clerk, a woman in her 40s with practiced indifference, tried to brush her off. But Janelle laid the evidence on the counter: documents, timestamps, the tape. "You let them take my son without asking the right questions. I'm asking them now." For a moment, no one moved. Then, reluctantly, the clerk made a note, passed a form. Janelle filled it out with shaking hands. The walls didn't feel so tall now. She wasn't the same mother who once cried on this floor. She was something sharper, louder. She left the office not with closure, but with movement. That was all she needed. The district attorney didn't answer her calls. So Janelle went to his office. No appointment. No warning. The receptionist's smile vanished when she heard Janelle's name. William Krell, was mid-interview when she stormed in. He looked up irritated until he saw her. Then, the irritation turned to fear, masked poorly with arrogance. "Ms. Carter, this is highly inappropriate," he said. She didn't blink. "You buried evidence." She dropped the folder on his desk. "And I'm going to make sure the world knows it." He opened the top page, and for a brief second, his eyes widened. Then the mask returned. "You're making a mistake." "No," Janelle said. "You did." Reporters began to peek through the glass, phones already raised. She turned and walked out before he could call security. Every step out of that office felt like a crack forming in the concrete. His reign was starting to shake. And he knew it. Kara leaked the emails. All of them. Screenshots, full PDFs, recordings. The article dropped at 7:00 a.m. sharp. Buried truths. Inside the Carter cover-up. Within hours, the internet exploded. Hashtags trended. People protested outside the courthouse. News anchors debated corruption, live on air. And for the first time, Michael's name wasn't just a footnote. It was a headline. But with attention came danger. "Young Doung." Anonymous calls to Kara's apartment. A break-in at the community center, Janelle used as home base. Papers scattered. A window shattered. No one was hurt, this time. But the message was clear: stop digging. Janelle didn't flinch. She taped the broken window, cleaned the mess, and kept going. Let them try, she whispered. They should be scared. Because now the story wasn't just about Michael. It was about the machine that built its power on silence. And silence was no longer an option. They filed the motion to reopen the case on a Thursday. By Friday, it was all over the news. Talk shows, true crime podcasts, college radio. Everyone wanted an angle. But the court stayed quiet. The judge hadn't ruled. The DA gave no comment. So Kara dropped a final bomb, a clip of the surveillance footage synced with police body cam audio from the night of the arrest. The contrast was devastating. Michael was calm, clear. The officer said, "We got our guy," before anyone asked a question. Public outrage turned into fury. And then, the unexpected. A leak. Someone inside the DA's office released sealed documents. Internal memos. Dates. Meeting transcripts. Proof the case was rigged, before it even went to trial. Kara called Janelle. "We just hit critical mass." And Janelle, looking at the city beyond her window, whispered, "Then, let it burn." Because the only way to build something better was to tear the lie down first. It wasn't a trial yet, but it might as well have been. Michael was brought back into court, this time through the front door. The press filled every seat. Protesters stood outside chanting his name. He walked in with his head high, wrists free. Janelle sat in the front row, her hands shaking in her lap. She barely blinked. Michael's eyes scanned the courtroom. He saw the judge, the DA, the cameras, and then his mother. He gave the smallest nod. The judge cleared his throat. "We are here to consider the motion to overturn the conviction of Michael Carter." Michael stepped forward. He spoke for the first time in 7 years. "I didn't kill my friend. And everyone in this room knew that. But you made me watch myself disappear." His voice didn't shake. It hit like a hammer. Silence followed. Heavy, deliberate silence. And for the first time, the courtroom listened. The judge recessed court for review. Outside, the city boiled. Protesters held signs with Michael's name. Reporters shouted questions. But Janelle and Michael walked through it all in silence. They found a bench on the courthouse lawn. She reached for his hand, but he flinched. Not rejection, just reflex. "I'm not used to being touched," he murmured. The words gutted her. She looked at him. Not the boy she raised, but a man built in a cage. His back was straighter. His eyes older. "Did you think I forgot you?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. "Then no, but I forgot myself." She swallowed hard, blinking back tears. "We're going to fix this. You already are," he said quietly. They sat like that, together, yet divided by 7 years of stolen time. Around them, cameras clicked. But for once, no one interrupted. That silence belonged to them. That night, Kara held a live interview with Michael. No lawyers. No filters. Just truth. The studio lights were harsh, but Michael didn't flinch. "What do you want people to know?" Kara asked. Michael paused, then said, "I didn't survive. I adapted." He talked about prison, the darkness, the isolation, the voices no one believed were real. They lock your body, but if they break your mind, that's permanent. Kara asked if he ever lost hope. He smiled faintly. "Hope's not what kept me alive. Anger did. My mother's anger." Janelle watched from the control room, one hand on the glass. Michael's words were like knives, sharp and clean. But they were his. And now the world was finally listening. By morning, the interview had over 3 million views. The comments weren't all kind. But the truth didn't need permission. It just needed air. And now, it had it. Back in court, the defense presented everything: the video, the emails, the leak, the missing testimony. The judge listened, expression unreadable. The DA, now cornered, tried to shift blame. Oversights, he called them. Procedural gaps. But it was clear. This wasn't oversight. It was design. As the final witness spoke, a retired clerk who confirmed the footage was received but discarded, the courtroom went silent. The judge leaned back, fingers steepled. "This case," he said slowly, "is a failure of duty at every level." Janelle held her breath. "I am overturning the conviction of Michael Carter." Effective immediately. The room erupted. Reporters shouted. Supporters cried. Janelle gasped, covering her mouth. But Michael, he just stood. No smile. No tears. Just stillness. Freedom isn't loud. Sometimes it's the quiet after years of screaming. Outside, the crowd roared. But Michael didn't join them. He walked past the microphones, the cameras, the applause. Janelle followed, matching his silence. Down the courthouse steps, through the street, across town, to a cemetery. They stood at James' grave. Michael stared at the headstone for a long time before kneeling. He didn't speak loudly, didn't cry. Just whispered, "I'm sorry I didn't say it sooner. I thought silence would protect me." Janelle stood behind him, tears slipping freely now. He ran his fingers along the carved name. "I saw it happen. I saw who did it. And I said nothing." He bowed his head. Janelle knelt beside him, placing a hand on his back. "You were a child, baby. You were scared. That's not weakness. That's being human." The wind stirred the leaves. For the first time in years, Michael allowed himself to grieve. The press wanted a victory story. Michael didn't give them one. He refused interviews. Declined awards. When asked what he'd do next, he simply said, "Breathe." The system had stolen 7 years, time he could never get back. Janelle tried to celebrate. She bought balloons, cooked his favorite meal. But Michael barely touched the food. "I don't know who I am out here," he admitted. She nodded, eyes tired. "Then we find out. Together." That night, he sat on the fire escape of their apartment, looking out over the city. Lights flickered like fireflies. He pulled out a notebook, blank. He wrote the date. Nothing else. But it was a start. Inside, Janelle folded the last court document and tucked it into a box. She labeled it, "Michael, case closed." Then she sat at the window, watching him. He wasn't whole. But he was home. And for now, that was enough. Michael didn't ease back into life. He drifted. The world moved fast, too loud, too bright. Simple things overwhelmed him: crowds, phones, laughter. He found work at a small mechanic's shop, kept his head down. He didn't speak much. But his hands remembered: tools, engines, fixing what was broken. The owner, an older man named Theo, didn't ask questions. "You're quiet," he said once. Michael replied, "I was taught not to speak unless spoken to." Theo looked at him for a long moment. "That's not how we do it here." Michael nodded. He wasn't healed, but he was trying. After work, he sat in the back lot watching the sky change. Some days, that was the closest he came to peace. Janelle never pushed. She packed lunches, left notes, called once a day. It wasn't the life she dreamed for him, but it was real. And after years of shadows, reality was a gift. Janelle had changed too. The woman who once trembled in court now stood at podiums, churches, schools. She spoke about justice, not just for Michael, but for the systems forgotten. "They didn't see my son," she told a crowded gymnasium. "They saw a statistic." The audience was silent, hooked. She showed photos, court records, the footage. She wasn't trying to relive pain, she was trying to weaponize it. Her voice shook sometimes, but her eyes never did. After one speech, a woman approached her, weeping. My nephew's inside. They said he confessed, but Janelle hugged her without hesitation. Then we fight. She wasn't a politician. She didn't want fame. But people listened. Her grief had become something else now. A tool. A banner. A voice no one could silence. And even when Michael didn't come to the talks, he watched every single one. Michael finally agreed to visit James' family. It had been years, but he couldn't keep avoiding them. They met at a quiet park, neutral ground. James' mother arrived first. Her eyes widened when she saw him. "You're taller," she said, voice trembling. "And older," Michael replied. She held out her arms. He stepped into them slowly. "I didn't protect him," Michael said. She shook her head. "You were a child, too." The guilt didn't vanish, but it loosened. They sat on a bench, watching kids play nearby. Michael told her what he saw, what he remembered, what he didn't. She listened, hands clasped. "I miss him every day," she said. "So do I," he answered. The sun dipped low. They didn't hug again. They just sat, breathing the same air, sharing silence. And somehow, that was enough for now. Some wounds don't heal. But sometimes, they stop bleeding. Back home, Janelle opened a letter that stopped her breath. A new case. A boy, same age as Michael had been. Same neighborhood. Same rushed charges. The public defender was requesting Janelle's help. Duh. She sat with it for a long time. The envelope trembled in her hands. Then she picked up her phone. She called Kara. "We need to talk." Within days, they were reviewing documents, building timelines. Janelle met the boy's mother, tired, scared, familiar. "You fought back," she whispered. "I don't know how." Janelle took her hand. "You learn, one step at a time." The system hadn't changed, not yet. But now it had something new to fear. Not lawsuits. Not headlines. Mothers. Relentless, furious, focused. Janelle wasn't just fighting for Michael anymore. She was fighting for them all. One injustice exposed. One wall cracked. And more to come. One evening, Michael stood outside the courthouse again, the same building that took everything. He didn't go in. He just watched people pass. Lawyers, defendants. Teenagers in dress shirts too big for them. A boy stood on the steps, flanked by public defenders, clearly afraid. Michael saw himself in that moment, not metaphorically, but exactly. Same age. Same skin. Same silence. The boy looked up. Their eyes met. Michael gave a nod. Subtle. Reassuring. The boy blinked, surprised. Then nodded back. It wasn't dramatic. No music. No speeches. Just a passing of something silent and sacred. Michael turned and walked away. For years, he thought justice was something that happened in courtrooms. But now he knew, justice begins long before that. It begins with someone saying, "I see you," and meaning it. Time passed, but the echo never faded. Michael moved through life carefully, as though the world might still break beneath his feet. He took evening classes, read constantly, kept to himself. His trauma didn't vanish. It shifted, settled deep in his bones. But it didn't control him. One night, Janelle found him asleep at the kitchen table, books open around him, pen in hand. She smiled, brushing hair from his forehead. There had been so many nights she imagined this moment, when she could watch her son rest without bars or guards or fear. The system stole years, but not the core of him. "You're still learning," she whispered, not wanting to wake him. He stirred slightly but didn't open his eyes. In that quiet space between heartbeats, she allowed herself something rare, peace. Just for a moment. Because not everything was fixed, but something had been reclaimed. A piece of him. A piece of them. Kara's documentary premiered 6 months later. Buried Voices. It was raw, intimate, angry. Michael sat in the back row during the first screening. He didn't stay after. He didn't speak. But his presence said everything. The audience wept, applauded, stood silent in places where words failed. Janelle sat beside Kara, hands clasped. Afterward, a teenager approached her. "My brother's locked up," he said. "They say he did something he didn't. I didn't know this could happen like that." Janelle didn't smile. She reached into her bag and handed him a card. "Tell your mother to call me." The fight never stopped. But it grew. In whispers and headlines. In students and strangers. In every mother who refused to be quiet. Kara's film wasn't closure. It was ignition. A spark passed from one hand to the next. Because the truth, once seen, doesn't go back into hiding. And once spoken, it spreads. Janelle kept everything. Every court record, every article, every letter Michael wrote. One afternoon she pulled it all from the closet. Box after box. She laid it out, in the living room, floor to ceiling. Then she began organizing it into something new. Not evidence. A timeline. A warning. A curriculum. She called it the Carter Archive. It wasn't for her. It was for students. Advocates. Mothers. Anyone who needed proof that justice could bend. Michael walked in mid-process and stopped cold. "You kept it all?" She nodded. "Everything they tried to erase." He looked down at a photo of himself in cuffs. He picked it up, then set it back down. "Let's make sure they don't forget it again." They worked side by side for hours, not speaking much. But every page sorted, every date aligned. It stitched something back together. Not the past, but the future. A new case began. Another boy, 17, same build, same story. Accused, rushed, forgotten. Michael attended the first hearing. Not as a witness. Not as a defendant. Just as presence. He sat in the gallery, silent, steady. The boy glanced at him, confused at first, then reassured. Janelle sat beside the boy's mother. No cameras. No spectacle. Just solidarity. The dad looked uncomfortable when he saw them. "Good, Wid." The judge noticed too. "Good. What?" Change doesn't come all at once. It comes in glances, pressure, shadow. That day, the motion was delayed. "We need time to review new materials," the DA said. And maybe that was a small thing. But in systems like this, small things were everything. The mother turned to Janelle, whispering, "Why are you here?" Janelle answered simply, "Because someone was there for me." And now, it was her turn. Michael stood once more outside the courthouse. Same stone, same weight. A new boy was inside now, 17, same skin, same fear. Michael didn't walk in. He just watched. His jaw was firmer now. His back straighter. He had survived something designed to destroy him. The press stood nearby, waiting for a headline. But Michael turned away from them. He faced the camera Kara held, small, personal, honest. "People say justice is blind," he said quietly. "But it's not. It sees everything. It just doesn't pay attention to the poor. To the black. To the quiet. Justice isn't blind. It's just expensive." Then he walked off screen. The camera lingered. The courthouse doors swung closed in the distance. A gavel echoed faintly in memory. A door slammed. Silence. Fade to black. Because the system may forget, but stories do not. And this one would not go quietly.